Hey everyone, this week we're going to be exploring a topic that I think is unique to the digital arts and also kind of fun and interesting to do. This centers around the idea that all digital art forms, things like photos, videos, video games, or apps that you might play, or websites you visit, all of this stuff is made of digital code. That is the media that underlies all digital media. The unique thing is that this can be manipulated in ways that are different from traditional media. So this week we're going to learn two simple ways that we can manipulate digital code in order to glitch images and create interesting new effects with our photographs or other images that we might have, as long as they're digital. The good news is you don't need to know anything about coding to do either of these methods, but we are going to explore how you kind of open up and view and manipulate code in ways that are a little bit easier for beginners like us. Okay. So the first thing that we need to understand that we're going to do is we need to start with a good image. If I click over to my desktop here, we're going to find that I have a couple images that I've picked, that I just enjoyed. I liked this photo I took of a rooster on the street in Key West, Florida. I had no idea that they just have hundreds of wild chickens running around that island. So I just have this kind of fun little snapshot that I'm going to demonstrate how we're going to do this. First things first, we need to work with a specific type of image file. So the one that I took from my camera, this is just from my phone camera, it's a JPEG image. But we're going to have to translate this into a new image file, and I'll explain why in just a second. But first things first, let's just go ahead and open our image with Photoshop. We'll give it a minute just to boot up here. Okay, now we're in Photoshop. I'm just going to click enter to set my crop box as the way that it was. And what we need to do, first things first, is go up to image and go to image size. The reason we want to do this is that we don't want too much code to work with. And actually, the smaller the image dimensions are, the less code actually is generated. This might seem kind of intuitive, but we'll see how this works in effect. Right now, my image is pretty large. It's 3,000 pixels wide and about 4,000 pixels high. That's a lot. What we really need to do is just maybe cut that about in half or even less than that. So I'm going to just set a width of 1,000 pixels, and we can see now it's 1,300 pixels or so high. Let's actually go just a little bit more. Let's pick 1,200. So we can adjust this here. As we see, we have the chain selected. That means it's going to keep your dimensions, the ratio, consistent so that you don't have any weird things happen where the image ends up wider or taller than it originally was. We're just going to click OK. And once we do that, oh, we've got a spinning rainbow wheel. It didn't take too long. We can see my photo has shrunk quite a bit. It's at 33% now, but if I go to view and view actual size, we'll see that it's still pretty large, and I can always zoom out here. Here's 100%. And so we've got our image, right? But we need to save it as a different file type than a JPEG. Remember this is super important. The reason we're going to do this is that JPEGs are compressed images, meaning it takes all of that information, that digital code, and it packages it really tightly together in a way that saves space. It's easier to share online, but in order to edit code in an image, we need an uncompressed image file. So we can do that really simply. If you just go up to File, and go to Save As, it's going to open up a dialog box, and I'm saving it here to my glitched images folder. And we can just call this our original image. And I'm going to change the format down here by clicking the drop-down box, and I'm going to pick BMP, which stands for bitmap. A bitmap is an uncompressed image file type. It's going to allow us to kind of pull off the effects that we want to achieve with this. So just select bitmap and go ahead and save. It'll bring up another options box. Just keep it at Windows and 24-bit if that's what it's at. These settings are pretty arbitrary, but Windows is what we want. The depth, it can be any number of these. Obviously, 16-bit, you'll see more graininess in the resolution. 32-bit, it'll be a lot more clear. 24-bit is fine for this because that was probably the default. So let's just click OK. And now we're done with Photoshop. We actually don't need Photoshop anymore. If you don't want to get into Photoshop at all, you can find different types of media encoders that would allow you to change your JPEG file into a bitmap. but because I have access to Photoshop, it's just quick and easy. So I don't need it anymore. We can just quit Photoshop. Okay, now I can see here in my folder, I've got my original.bitmap image. What we want to do with this, what we're going to start doing is what we call reinterpreting data. You can think about it in this way. If all of our ones and zeros and all of that digital code that makes up our image file is embedded with what we would call a header that tells the computer what type of file it is. Because it has a header that says this is an image file, our computer knows to display that code, interpret it in a way that makes it an image file. But we can reinterpret digital code in different ways. So the first way we're going to do that is just by viewing the text of the file. This is really easy to do on a Mac. If I just click Open With, and we go to Other, we want to find another utility here that's called Text Edit, and this is way down at the bottom. If you're using a Windows computer, this should also still be possible. I'm not sure what the name of the app on Windows computers are in order to edit text. I think it's WordPad. If you can look for WordPad, that should be there in your applications as well. But basically, we just want a plain text editor. Microsoft Word won't work for this. Text Edit or WordPad will. So let's just click Open. And what we see here, if I expand my screen out, let's just drag our boundary box. This is an absolute mess, right? Who would have thought like a code, an image file has this much code? And we can see if I'm scrolling down, 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 there's just tons and tons of it, right? Lots and lots of code. So this is the result of working with a high resolution file. Let's say you had like an image that was only 300 by 400 pixels, you'd have a lot less of this code to work with. But what we want to do, the first thing we can do, this is really super simple. We can just start hacking into this code, cutting things, pasting things. We can even write in certain things here and there. But what we want to do is we want to scroll down about 1/10 of the way through our image file's code. Up at the top of that image file in the code is typically where the header is. And remember, if we break the header or we manipulate that in some way, the computer doesn't know that we're working with an image file. So we want to be sure that we avoid that part of the code. Again, typically the first 10% or so of your text file. So scroll down a bit of the ways and then we can just start. Let's just start by actually grabbing a big chunk of this text. We can do this just by clicking and selecting. I want a little bit more than this. Let's scroll all the way down. Let's get a big chunk of text. We can see we have a really big file. I'm going to grab just a ton of code, scrolling a little bit more, just so that we'll be able to see the effects probably a little bit better. That looks good. Totally arbitrary. Looks good to me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press Command and X on my computer. And this is our cut code, right? This is our shortcut to cut something. When you cut something with Command X, it automatically goes to your clipboard, so it's copied as well. So Command X, and now we can see it's been deleted. Now what would happen if I scroll down in the code file towards the bottom, maybe find a new section totally at random, and then I paste that back in by hitting Command V. What I've done is I've moved a section of code that was in one part of the image's code to another part, and we should be able to see some strange effect. So you can do this completely arbitrary. This first method, I can just select things and I can even just delete them. I can duplicate chunks of code. Obviously we can see mine's running a little sluggish. Let's just copy this here and let's just paste it a few times throughout the document. Scrolling up to use my scroll bar to get around it a little bit more easily. Paste it in here again. And what we should do, you can repeat this as many times as you want. You can just keep going with this. And you're going to find that just the more that you do it, the more dramatic your results will be. Now, all I have to do, we can see it's still original.bitmap up here at the top. I can just hit Command S or go up to File and Save. And now what this has done is changed my image file. If I open this up, I can find it in my folder, our original bitmap file. And if I open this up with Preview, we should be able to see, there we go. It's a glitched image. We can see certain things have been offset. It looks like maybe here's where I might have, when I had switched things around, there's a lot of like kind of jumbling up of the image. There's some color effects. We've successfully glitched our image and we've retained it. So I do want to warn you, be careful with this method. If you delete parts from the header again, or sometimes if you delete too much, you might find that you break the image and it's not able to be opened again. So this is sometimes just a balance of seeing how far you can push it. Another thing you might do with this, again, I can just open up my bitmap image again with text edit, go find, oops, not from the App Store. If I go back to open with and then go to other, and then we go back down to text edit, or if you're on Windows, find WordPad, we'll open it back up. We can see what happens even if you maybe find like you know, a novel or an article or something written online, or that you want to even just write your own messages, hidden messages into it. So like, this is a chicken crossing the road. So it's running a little sluggish right now, but you know, I could repeat this. Maybe I just paste this in just a whole bunch of times just to see what happens. You know, we might not notice anything with this because it's just one little bit of code here generated into the file. But again, I can copy and paste, and I can try it in another location, and we'll just see what happens. You know, it might not be even noticeable, but it's just kind of one of those fun things. You can hide things in your code, secret messages, so to speak. And so again, you can just go ahead and save. We'll click out of this. Oh, and it did actually do some stuff. Adding that little text in, it made the kind of sky pink, and it actually somehow realigned that building a little bit, or you know, shuffled it off into a new location. So again, that's really the simple process. You can glitch images by reinterpreting the code as data as text, and then resaving it back out and opening it as you would an image file. What you might want to do if you want to save this or embed it on other places, though, is after you've opened up your glitched image in preview, we can go and again export this as a new image file, and let's just pick JPEG. The reason I'm going to do this is because now it'll stabilize the code. It won't, you know, have any risk of breaking. I'm just going to call this glitched image and just click save. And now we should be able to treat this like it's just any other image file. You know, we can open it up and don't worry that it's breaking, because it's taken all that code, it's kind of nested it now in a new JPEG, and that makes it easy to kind of share about. Okay, so that's the first method. The second method is actually just as easy, but you do need to download a new freeware software called Audacity to your computer if you're going to use this method. Audacity is an audio editing tool. If you've ever done any kind of like audio recording, Audacity is freeware, it's open source, and it's free to download and use, and it allows you to edit audio files. So in the same way that we reinterpreted our images data as text, we can actually reinterpret our images data as audio as well, and we can use interesting kind of audio editing tools and effects in order to glitch the image that way as well. So I'm going to walk you through this, just where you can go to download Audacity. If you go to the link that I provided in the agenda, you can just click right through, but here I am. I'm on the audacityteam.org download page, and I'm just going to pick my platform that I'm going to use. I'm using a Mac, so I would just click Audacity for Mac. If you scroll down, you can find this little link here. They kind of conspicuously hide it, but you just want to download the audacity.dmg file and install that. Double click when it gets downloaded, and it will install it to your computer. So let's go ahead and just open up Audacity right now, and I'll show you what it looks like. So now I've got it on my computer. Ideally, you do too, and we can just open up Audacity and see what we've got. Oh, one thing I am going to need to do is I need to reset my my original image so that we can see kind of how this is going. So again, I'll go to my Photoshop, and I'll just save this as a bitmap. Sometimes when I'm doing this, it's useful to just create duplicates of your raw bitmap image over and over, so that you know that you're kind of got like a stockpile to draw from. You don't have to keep doing this, but for me it's pretty easy. Again, just go and save it as a bitmap, and save it again to my glitched images folder. Yeah, let's go ahead and just replace it, because I don't need the original that I've got, the one that I'd glitched, because I've got a different glitched one. Okay, so here's my image.bitmap. looks normal again. Now what we're going to do is work in Audacity. It's kind of a confusing looking interface, but it's really not so bad once you understand where everything is and kind of the really basic tricks that we're going to be using here. But you'll need to follow along pretty carefully at this point in order to get our data into Audacity in a way that doesn't break it, okay? So first thing, go up to File, click that, and go to Import. When it flags out there, we want to pick raw data because we're not importing audio, we're importing raw data, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my glitched images folder, find my original, here's my image.bitmap. I'm the one that's not glitched, and so it's our bitmap, and so now I'm going to click Open. Now it's going to pop up another dialog box. These are the settings that you absolutely have to get right. You can play around with these, but the risk of breaking your image after the fact is a little bit more pronounced if you do. But what I set it to is I make sure that my encoding is set to ULaw. So find ULaw and set the first box encoding to that. Make sure that you set the byte order to big endian. And then you can use either stereo or mono. I find that the most successful way is to deal with mono. There's no need to split this into two different channels. We're just going to deal with one image, and its data. So just go ahead and click Import. And after a few seconds, there we go. We see here is my image's data interpreted as an audio waveform. Pretty strange, right? I can assure you it doesn't sound great either. Let me go ahead, if I can get my cursor up here. Here's our selection tool. You can find this, and that will allow you to, whoa, that's pretty bad sounding. Hold on, let's hear it. Not pretty, right? So that's what it sounds like when an image is interpreted as an audio file. So what we're going to do, if we can always zoom out. If we pick the zoom tool, that clicking it will zoom in. You can see it's got plus sign in the crosshairs, but if I click shift, it allows me to zoom out so that I can see my full waveform file. There we go. I think we're set. Now what I want to do is I can do the same kind of things, cutting that code, moving it around, but I'm going to use the selection tool up here at the top. If I just click and hold and I grab a section, and again, I hit Command X, and then I put my cursor in a new location and I hit Command V to paste. I've now cut and copied a section from here to there. And maybe I just do this arbitrarily a couple times, moving parts of the image around in the code file. Command X to that. Move it here. I find that you don't have to avoid the first 10% on audio files quite as pronounced as you would in an image file. But that's going to be kind of up to you to do. Okay, so now I've done a few just kind of really quick, simple edits. I've cut things and pasted them around. We can see my original image, the waveform looks kind of funky now. It looks like it's been kind of collaged and cut and paste. So now we want to make this, churn it back out to the computer as an image file, and that's pretty easy to do in Audacity as well. So go to File, go to Export, and go to Export Audio. Even though we're doing an image, we want to be able to export our audio. What this is going to do it's going to give it a different file suffix anyway. It doesn't really matter, but that's the setting that we're going to use. Make sure that you use Export Audio. But as we can see here, I've picked my file type needs to be other uncompressed files. So your file type must be other uncompressed files. The header, again, it's telling it what type of file this is, should be RAW. RAW is a camera file that we can use. And the encoding should also be ULaw, just like it was before. So this is going to keep everything consistent. You can name this whatever you want. I can call this audio glitched .raw. Keep that suffix the way it is as raw, because your computer can open up raw files dependably. So again, we'll just click save. It's gonna, if it thinks it's an audio file, but so you can enter track name, but we're not going to do any of that. And there we go. It's exported it as raw. Let's go to my image file, and here's audio glitched.raw. If I open this up again in preview, we should be able to see it. And that is super glitched out, right? Really cool. There's other things you can do on Audacity too. Let me just give you a quick kind of rundown on this. If I back up, if I hit Command Z, I can go back to my original file type here. I've got a cat making noise. Get out of here. Um, Annoying jerk. Okay. I think we're ready to go here. Undo import. This is back to the way that it would have been. There's also audio effects that you can add to things in Audacity as well. So if you have any experience with like music production or playing guitar or anything like that, you know that you can add things like reverb and phasing and stuff like that over the audio file. So if I just select a big chunk of this audio file and I go up to the top and I click Effect, and let's just click Invert and we'll see what happens. So ideally this should create some kind of effect, and we can again go back to Export, Export Audio, make sure we have it set as Other Uncompressed Files, Raw, Headerless for the header, and ULAW for encoding. And I'm just going to call this Glitched Invert. And we're going to click Save, and it will render it back out for us again. And now if I go back here, we can find the glitched invert file, and that seems to have, oh, I don't want to open that in Audition, in preview here. You can see there, you know, that this is dramatically glitched now. So those effects are, oops. So those effects are a lot of fun to play around with. I actually went through and I created kind of a library of some of these sorts of effects that each of these will do, and you feel free to look through that. I've uploaded it as a PDF that shows you kind of what each of these effects you can expect to kind of do. Some of them are more pronounced than others, but you'll kind of understand by looking at these examples what each one sort of does, or you can just kind of experiment and see what you come up with. So there you go. There are two really simple ways to begin getting started on glitching images. Your assignment this week is going to be to use both of these in some way to create a collection of glitched images. Because these go really quick, you can churn out a whole bunch. You can experiment and see what you might add to a picture by glitching it, and gain a little bit of control over the kinds of methods that you're using. So I look forward to see what you come up with this for this project. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out as always, and I'll see you soon.